Hi, in this video we're going to be talking about the Boolean data type, which is going to be extremely important in Chapter 4 when we start talking about decision logic in programming. But I wanted to bring it up now because it is one of the data types. Oops. Okay, a Boolean variable can hold only one of two values, either true or false, and you use the keyword BOOL to declare a Boolean variable. Okay, so an integer variable can hold millions of different values. It can hold the value 1, it can hold the value 342, it can hold the value 7,649. A Boolean value can only be one of two things, true or false. And this will be important, like I said, when we get to chapter 4, when we start using if statements and saying, if this condition is true, then we do this. If it's false, we do this other thing. I'm not going to get into that today, but I do want to set the stage for that by introducing the Boolean data type. So let's go back to our ice cream example that we've been using in our Chapter 2 videos. Make sure you watch the videos in order. Okay, so here near the top of my code, well, our code's starting to get long, we've declared some variables. Here, we're going to declare a Boolean variable. And I'm going to call it big. Now, this variable big is going to represent whether the user's bowl of ice cream is big or not. If it's big, then the Boolean variable big should have the value true. If it's not big, then the Boolean variable should have a value of false. Okay. By default, it's assigned a value of false. If you don't explicitly assign a value to it. Okay. So we could initialize this to false, which is a keyword, or true, which is a keyword. Okay. I'm just going to leave it as it is because we're going to assign a value to it later. So if you scroll down, to after the point where we've added some scoops. So I'm going to add some code right here after where we add scoops and before where we calculate our totals and put our output. So I'm going to assign a value to that variable named big. Okay. So big assignment operator. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying I have a Boolean variable, and the value that I'm going to assign to that is going to be whatever is on the right-hand side here. So it has to be true or false. Now, what you can do, let me jump back to my slides, is use a comparison operator. So what that does is it compares two items, and it returns a Boolean value, meaning it returns true or false. Okay. So you can compare things as being less than, greater than, equal to, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. Okay. Table 2-4. This is an important table. You can come back to it, particularly, again, when we get to chapter 4. We're going to be using operators a lot more than we are in this chapter 2, but I want to introduce these to you. You'll notice that when you're comparing something as equal to, you have to use the double equal sign, because a single equal sign is what we use to assign a value to a variable. It's not like a mathematical equals. Here, when we're comparing two things, we use a double equal sign. Okay, so if we type 7 equals 7, the result of that is true. That is a true statement. If we type 3 equals 9, that's false. So that is going to return false. Okay, so you can use something on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of these comparison operators, and it will give you a value of true. All of these things are true, or a value of false. So in our code, okay, so we want the value of this big variable to be true, let's say if the customer has more than 3 scoops. Okay. So we're going to say big equals num scoops greater than 3. All right, so what the code here does is it takes this expression, number of scoops greater than 3, and it evaluates it as true or false. And then it assigns that true or false to the variable that we called big. Okay. So in this case, the number of scoops started at 3, and then we added a scoop to it. Okay. So by the time C# gets to this line of code, the num scoops variable is holding a value of 4. 4 is greater than 3, so the result of this expression is true. So the big Boolean variable is going to be assigned a value of true. Now let's check if that worked by coming down to the bottom and displaying it to the screen. So we are going to use our writeLine method, and we're going to say have a big bowl of ice cream and then we're going to put a placeholder in there. And the value of that placeholder is going to be the variable called big, which will be true or false. So what the computer is going to display is a statement that says, have a big bowl of ice cream, true, or have a big bowl of ice cream, false. If you need to catch up, you can pause. I'm about to save and test my code. Let's compile our ice cream code. Still have that warning error because I haven't used the tax variable. We'll get to that in a minute, probably in the next video. Okay, so now let's test our application. We are going to run our ice cream application. Your subtotal is 5. Customer asked for 4 scoops. Have a big bowl of ice cream. True. All right, and that is the Boolean variable in a nutshell. As I mentioned, we'll get into using Booleans a lot more in Chapter 4. And I did want to mention, if you download this slideshow, I did also include the example from the textbook, which I think is a great example to work through for a little bit of extra understanding of the Boolean data type. Well, that's all for Booleans. Join me in my next video, which is strings and characters.